everybody, Lisa A. Romano here, the Breakthrough Life Coach, and I'm bowing to the love and the light that is absolutely in you. Shine on, dear one, shine on. So today I wanted to talk about the 4 absolute reasons I think that we have to have a blow up. Now, I don't advocate being aggressive. I don't advocate, being confrontational. In fact, I advocate leaning towards the light. But here's the thing. When you're living in a dark situation, sometimes you have to pierce the bubble in order to let the light in. Sometimes we're living in relationship dynamics and family dynamics that are very dark. And there are 4 reasons why I think a blow up would actually be able to allow light into a situation. First reason you have an absolute right, in my humble opinion, to have a blow up is when you know that you are not getting through. When you are being stonewalled by somebody, when you know that the person you're dealing with is deliberately going out of his or her way to not hear you, I absolutely think that that's a reason to have a blow up. The second reason I think that we have to have a blow up or a confrontation is when we are trying to tell people how we feel and we're being vulnerable, we're putting ourselves out there, and what comes back is you're crazy and you need medication. You're over emotional. Everyone thinks you're crazy. Look at me. I'm so together, and look at you. When you are being gaslighted and the people that you're in relationships with are standing there and judging you when you're having a reaction, I think we are entitled to, in that situation, have a blow up. The third reason I think that we should be able to have a blow up, and again, in my humble opinion, is when we are absolutely being drained. When we have tried to get through to the people we love, when we have tried to be kind, when we have tried to have empathy, when we have tried to save the alcoholic, or we have tried to get a point across to the narcissist, when we have tried to get through to our mother who enjoys triangulating us against our siblings, when we have tried to get through to our siblings and we are met with this obstinance and we are met with this disgrace, and primarily when we feel absolutely exasperated and drained by these experiences, I believe that we are entitled to have a blow up. The fourth, and I think it's a really underappreciated reason to have a blow up, is what I call, and many people call, crazy communication. You ever have a conversation with someone and ask them a question and they ask you 3 questions in return? Babe, what time are you getting home from dinner? I don't know. What time do you think I'm getting home? Babe, who just called on the phone? I don't know. Who just called on the phone? Babe, why did you tell your mother that I wasn't going to be there on Saturday? I don't know. Why did you tell your sister last year that you said that you wanted to go to the party for her nephew and you knew you didn't want to go? Why did you do that? So crazy communication is the type of communication that goes round and round and round and round. And it could be over something completely mundane. The type of communication that makes you feel like you're going crazy, like seriously crazy. It makes you wonder if there's something wrong with you. It's the type of communication where you go in knowing what you want to say, right? And then you address what you want to say, and the person that you're dealing with is dancing around the subject matter, starts throwing questions at you, starts accusing you of being self-righteous, or starts accusing you even of being a narcissist or too needy. And all of a sudden, the subject that you want to talk about disappears, it dissipates, and you never get anything resolved. So let me explain what I think a blow up is. So now, I believe that what happens in one space happens across space. It happens in all space. So I like physics, and I'm sure you guys have heard that a body in motion stays in motion until acted upon by a force. Well, the same is true in a relationship. A relationship stays the same, with the same dynamics, and has within it a certain vibration or a certain energy until acted upon by a force. And I believe that in certain situations that force is a blow up. So if I'm going to continually be ignored by my husband, by my sister, by my father, whoever, there might be a point in my life where I have to create a force that is equal to what I'm trying to change. So for me in my life, I've shared this with many of you guys. The day my relationship with my mom changed is when we had a blow up when I was about 36 years old. It was my birthday and I was going through my divorce or separation at the time. Really, really tough time. And she had invited my ex-husband to join us for my birthday. Hello. And we were eating pizza on paper plates. No big deal. I share that because there wasn't a whole bunch of forks and knives and plates that had to be cleaned. We ate on paper plates. There were 6 coffee mugs in the sink, and my sister-in-law was washing them at the sink. And I made the mistake. When you come from a dysfunctional home, you're not allowed to talk about how you feel, and if when you express how you feel, gives the family the impression that you want them to care about how you feel, forget it. They're gonna jump all over you. So I made the mistake of saying, boy, I'm so tired. I was going through a horrible divorce. My in-laws were lying about me. My ex-husband was threatening me. I didn't know where I was going to go. I had 3 small kids to take care of. My ex-husband was selling my business. I mean, I was a mess. And yes, I was freaking tired because I was learning about codependency. And it's mental Olympics trying to change childhood programming. Yeah, I was tired. And I made the mistake of saying that out loud. And my mom turned to me and she said, I don't know what you're flipping so tired about. You didn't raise a flipping finger the whole time you were here. And it was in that moment I stopped and I began to ask myself how I felt. And I connected with how I felt, which was terrible and alone and abandoned and rejected and humiliated and all of that gobbledygook. And I just pushed myself away from the dining room table, went into a back room. I started to cry. I connected to how I felt. I knew that I had to start feeling my feelings, and I knew this was going to be big news to my family. And I knew it was going to upset the apple cart. My mom eventually came in. Where are you going? I said, I'm leaving. I said, I'm not 12 anymore. You don't get to talk to me like this anymore. And if a girl ever needed her mother, it was now. Move out of my way. And so I had this big blow up with my mom, right? So that was the force. That was the force that changed the relationship pattern and loop that my mother and I were in. So that force was equal to the amount of energy, negative energy, that had come my way for so many years. It was a tremendous, tremendous force. And I left in a huff and I left crying and my brother was yelling, you should leave, blah, 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 blah. My father was shaking his head. Oh, blah, blah. It was just a mess. But I realized, looking back over my life, that in the times of my life where I took that stand, I had that okay corral moment, I had that blow up moment. It was in those moments that my life began shifting and changing. And I think it's important that we recognize that, objects in motion and relationships in motion stay in motion until acted upon by a force. My hope is that that force is a conscious force. I hope that that force that you bring into your life experience is one that is rooted in love. I hope that you're not having blow-ups just to have blow-ups. See, I was having blow-ups in my life with my ex-husband and my mother. Once I hit that point where I realized that, I'd been living below the veil, my agenda was to be set free. My agenda was peace, right? So I knew that I was going to have to walk through these storms. My agenda was never to just be confrontational. My agenda was to change the direction of my life and to change the direction of my children's lives. I really did once believe that I was not good enough. I really did once believe that I could not get divorced. I really did once believe that it was terrible to bring children through a divorce. And don't get me wrong, it's not fun, but the good that has come from me being able to get divorced and free myself of terrible, terrible relationship dynamics is amazing, right? And so if you are having blow-ups and confrontations because you are ultimately seeking the light and peace, then I think it will work out for you. I caution anyone that is living with a narcissist who is psychopathic, who is a sociopath, who has violent tendencies. You have to be very, very careful because blow ups can be very costly and dangerous. In that situation, I think that it is best to leave. It is best to find a way to escape the situation, probably without drama, and that the force that is changing that relationship is within you. It's within your mind, it's within your heart, it's within your body, you know. So dear ones, understand that inertia in relationships is just as real as inertia anywhere else in space. We stay in motion until acted upon by a force. And sometimes we actually need a blow up to be that force that changes the direction of our relationships and even our lives. If you're lucky, if you're lucky, when you start having these blow ups and telling people how you feel, if you're lucky, well, it depends on how you look at it. Some relationships will survive. Relationships that had a chance will get better, and relationships that were never good will begin to fall away. But you have to focus on the light. You have to focus on getting better. You have to focus on, you becoming a masterful creator. You have to focus on creating the type of life that you want, opposed to living the type of life experiences that you have been living out of patterns and unconsciousness. And today I want to teach you about fear, about attachments, about going on resistance, and how you can live in a higher state of vibrations that allow you to experience much more love and light in your life. So what we have to understand is that we are flesh beings, but more than that, we are vibrational beings that have come here to transcend the flesh, meaning that we've come here to overcome the earthly experiences that keep us stuck. Stuck how? Emotionally, psychologically. We can pigeonhole ourselves in life by thinking a thought that is out of alignment with what we really are. So when you know that you are truly an emotional and vibrational being, you are an energetic being, that you are more energy than you are physical, then it might help you to think about yourself in those terms. And when you are going up against a difficult time in your life, it might be very, very helpful for you to understand that you have come to overcome physical ideas and beliefs that keep you stuck and help you feel dank and heavy. You've actually come to merge with the light that you are. So the goal for me is to be non-attached, because I understand that as a vibrational being, I am unattached. I have the ability to take my mind and to take my perception as far as I want to take it. And when I do that, when I do it through visualization, when I do it through intention, when I do it through meditation, when I take my thoughts to higher realms, when I take my thoughts and I think higher type thoughts, healthier thoughts, more freeing thoughts, I'm able to experience a lightness in my body that a lot of people can't and don't, because they're not doing this type of mental work and this intentful work. They're not governing their minds on purpose. And so what happens is you will get caught up in earthly ideas. You will get caught up in illusions. You will get caught up in materialism. And if you're not very careful, you'll believe in them too. The other thing that I wish that people would understand is that everything that you experience, every emotion is a teacher. Everything that you feel has been meant to be embraced. It has not been meant to push away and to deny and to suppress and to judge. Everything, every feeling that you experience is sort of here to teach you about where you are, where what is, where your conscious mind is, where you are flowing your attention, which is everything. Remember, what you give your attention to is usually what will grow and what will expand. And what you're trying to control usually gets worse, right? It's sort of like somebody who has acne and they're freaking out about their acne and they're trying to control their acne and they're washing their face so much, and then all of a sudden their face is dried out. So now not only are they having, these breakouts, but now they also have a lot of dry skin, which is making them more uncomfortable, more irritated, more itchy. And so what happens then? You try to control it more creams, more makeup, and here we go, just trying to control this situation. There's a lot of fear and there's a lot of resistance, and there's a lot of beating the drum of this thing that you don't want, and lo and behold, it gets worse, right? So if we just take that analogy and we imagine that we have come to overcome and become non-resistant so that we can live in the flow. And that's really hard to do, because that means that you have to accept what's showing up, right? But when you understand that everything is transient, everything that you experience is temporary. Everything that you're experiencing for the opportunity to transcend it and to let go of it so that you don't have to feel stuck in your body with your thoughts and your mind, so that you don't have to be controlled by anything or anyone. I can tell you that for me, I don't want to be controlled by anyone or anything. And I realized years ago that when I thought someone was controlling me, what was really happening was I was controlling myself. I felt controlled by this subconscious programming, by this codependency. I was controlled by living below the veil. I was in loops of ideas and loops of beliefs, and I was doing the same things over and over and over. So I was stuck with the same type of people, having the same types of conversations. So it looked like they were controlling me, but what was really controlling me was the way I was looking at the situation. When I learned to become more non-resistant, when I learned to have tea with my fear, when I learned to have tea with anger, when I learned to say, anger, what are you trying to teach me? What am I afraid of? Why am I afraid of that? What am I trying to control? What do I need to transcend? When I started looking at my emotions in that light, embracing them like I would friends, that's when my mind began to shift. When I understood that when I was going through my divorce and I was afraid to get divorced and I was begging my ex-husband to change, please do this and please do that, I realized that I was putting all my power outside of me. And the illusion was, if your ass changes, right? If you change, then I can stay here. And then I don't have to face my codependency. I don't have to face I am not enough. I don't have to face living on my own. I don't have to face becoming completely responsible for how I feel and completely responsible for the energy people that I have in my life. You know, I can go on and stay in this house and never have to get another house. You know, you can go on and we can get another business and I never have to work for myself and take care of the kids by myself. I didn't have to face any of it if my ex-husband changed. And then I realized that in that whole dynamic, it was me being controlled by me. It was a thought, a fear, a linchpin, an attachment, the fear of letting go, the fear of what might be. It was me believing that I was supposed to stay stuck, right? I was supposed to not change. So, and that's wrong. We've come to transcend, and the power to transcend is within us. But we have to learn how to transcend the thoughts that are in our head so that we can cut these psychic cords and sometimes karmic cords to generations from the past. If you're the grandchild of an alcoholic, you have been affected by perhaps people you've never met. And so there are cords that you need to cut. And it all starts with understanding that the goal is to become non-attached. The goal is to have love and light move into your body. The goal is to raise your vibrations, because when you go toe-to-toe with a dynamic that you don't appreciate, you don't win. You get stuck. It's when you let go, you can transcend. And when you're up here, you're in higher vibrational frequencies. That's where magic can happen. That's where doors open. And that's where true change can take place. But going toe-to-toe with a dynamic that you're not happy about is not going to help you ascend it. And you've come to ascend. So what I want to do is I want to offer you some steps. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to identify your fear. So go ahead, take out a piece of paper and ask yourself, what are my top 3 fears right here, right now? The second thing you want to do is you want to identify the attachments you have to those fears. So it sounds like this. Why do I fear that? Why do I fear my ex-husband cheating on me? Why do I fear not taking care of my mom anymore? Why do I fear going no contact with my sibling? What am I afraid of? right? And so you write those things down. Figure out what you're attached to. The third step is you're going to be very, very honest with yourself and ask yourself, what am I trying to control? What am I trying to control? And what you'll probably discover is that you're trying to control things you can't control. So let's say you are afraid of going no contact with your sibling, okay? And you identify that going no contact with your sibling, you're attached to or you're afraid of what people are going to say about you. So then the third step is, what am I trying to control? I'm trying to control what people say about me. Once you identify what you're trying to control, the fourth step is to try to let go of that thing you're trying to control. Because you can't control anything or anyone outside of you, and that's not where your energy is going to be used very wisely. Your energy is going to be used wisely when you're focusing on what you can control, when you're governing your own mind, when you're paying attention to what you do and what you think. And so if you're worried about what people think about you, in my opinion, that falls under the umbrella of codependency. I'm trying to control what you think about me. So I'm going to stay small and not be super responsible for how I feel, and not be super responsible for the energy that you bring into my life, which is toxic. And I'm not going to tell the truth because I'm afraid of what you're going to say about me. And then I might be chastised or excommunicated from this circle of friends or family, and then I will feel alone. And then I will feel this attachment trauma. I will feel exasperated. I will feel depressed and despondent because I'm so alone. So that's what a lot of people are afraid of. But the truth is that we're never really alone. And we're never alone because we're connected to everything. So it's this feeling that we're connecting to, and this idea and these beliefs that when other people are talking to us, we're not alone. If you come from a dysfunctional home and you have people who are gaslighting you, if you have been narcissistically abused, if you're the adult child of a narcissist or the child of an alcoholic, if you have passive-aggressive family members and you're hanging out with them and you think that because you're with them physically, you're connected to them in a healthy way, you're not. You're not. And it is healthier for you to see that and let that go so that you can begin flying high in a higher state of consciousness and higher states of vibrational frequencies, and you increase your chances exponentially of pulling people into your experience that are actually good for you, right? So, but you want to identify the fear, identify what you're attached to, identify what you're trying to control. And the fourth step is work on doing what you can to let those things go and to let go of those attachments. The one idea that really helps me is that I understand that my goal is to be as non-attached as possible, to be as non-resistant to everything that happens in my experience, so that nothing can nail me against the wall. Nothing can nail me to the wall. So that means that if people dislike me, if people say mean things about me, I have to be non-resistant. I've worked myself to a point where I can say, I'm sorry you feel that way. Namaste, you're entitled to your opinion. It's not my job to control what you think about me. And I'm not coming from a narcissistic place. I'm coming from a state of peace and love and acceptance of you and your opinion, and an acceptance of love for myself, because I'm not responsible for how you see me. And people who are below the veil are always projecting. So somebody who isn't resonating in a very high frequency, I accept that they could be projecting some lack in themselves onto me or onto you or onto someone else. It's extremely, extremely difficult. Extremely. And it is a warrior's path to be aware of something that's happening in the external environment and to become non-resistant to it, and to not want to control it, and to accept that it's there, and then to do what you can to be non-resistant to what's happening quickly. When my mom was in the home with my dad, and I knew my dad wasn't being very kind to her, there was very little that I could do about it. My siblings were not willing to go to court and gain guardianship over my mom, and I knew that I wasn't going to start this fight unless I was going to be able to win the fight, and I had to accept that I wasn't going to start this fight because I knew I wasn't going to win. Very difficult, because I had to become non-resistant to this idea that my mother was in a situation that was unhealthy, that was abusive, and I could not control. And it wasn't because I didn't care. it was because I understood that vibrationally, if I tried to control this, I was going to make everything worse. I was going to bring a negative energy to it. And I knew that only love and light can transform anything. And so I had to become non-resistant to it. I had to let it go. I had to give it over to the light and say, okay, I'm willing to let this go. I'm willing to stay in a higher, there goes my microphone. I'm willing to stay in a higher state of awareness and a higher frequency and believe and hope that this situation transforms for all of us. And I spent time, I'm not even kidding, I read my journal to Anthony. Back in October, I wrote in my journal that I want my mom to pass, and I want to be at her funeral, and I want the funeral to feel like it's peace and love. I do not want my mom to live like this in hospice care and to be bedridden for years and to have to put up with this abuse. And that if she wasn't going to get better, then her transition was better for her and better for us all. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So becoming non-resistant will save your sanity. And it's not easy, and that's why I create so many videos, because I want you guys to be able to hear this message over and over and over and feel supported as you begin to make changes in your life, right? So remember that you are enough. You are enough. Remember that hanging on to people who treat you like you're nothing does nothing but rob your soul of the magic and the beauty that is the awakened life. Know that people are permitted to have their opinions of you, and you don't have to meet them there. You can always send them love and light, lift them up in love and light, hope that they wake up, and you can always raise yourself up in love and light and know that at your core you are absolutely divine and perfect, and that you have come and you have incarnated to transcend all. And in this life experience, if you become conscious enough, if you allow your mind to have its awareness more in the prefrontal lobe and the neocortex than the amygdala, then you can actually overcome triggers. You can overcome faulty belief systems, and you can create heaven on earth. You really, really can. Today we're going to talk about what we can do when we are suddenly faced with tremendous anxiety that we were not aware of before, when we were catering to a narcissist and we've suddenly stopped catering to a narcissist. So I know from my own life and from my professional life, coaching so many people, that when we start to take care of ourselves and we stop catering to other people, in some cases we can all of a sudden be hit with tremendous anxiety. And it can be very, very maddening and very confusing. So let me read you this letter that I received from a YouTube viewer. She writes, "Dear Lisa, I am 60 years old and just realizing I have been abused by narcissistic parents my whole life. I am breaking free of this dynamic, but I am suddenly dealing with so much anxiety. My parents are in their 80s and I have stopped catering to them. Is it possible that because I have less to worry about, for example, their Sunday meals I had to attend, their triangulation, their scapegoating and such. I mean, I have excluded myself from their lives to a great deal. And now that I am not tiptoeing on eggshells, I am suddenly feeling panic. What's going on? Can you help me figure this out? Love, Estelle." So, Estelle, when you have been raised by narcissistic parents and someone like you who has gone 60 years unaware as to the narcissistic dynamic in your home, it can be quite troubling to wake up and realize that you have been in an abusive narcissistic relationship with your parents. It can be very troubling and confusing. But at the same time, it can start to make a whole lot of sense. Suddenly, you understand scapegoating. Suddenly, you understand, that's gaslighting. Suddenly you understand passive-aggressive personalities. Suddenly you understand the two-faced mom or dad that you have. Suddenly addictions make sense. Suddenly distractions make sense. So as confusing as it is, it can also be, exciting to finally realize it's not you, it's just your experiences or your environment or your programming. And yes, absolutely, I have found that when we begin to let go of narcissistic parents, narcissistic spouses, narcissistic siblings, whatever. When we start to deal with our own codependency, when we acknowledge that we have been codependent upon other people, meaning that we worried more about what other people thought about us than what we thought about ourselves, when we acknowledge that codependency has caused this need in us to be needed by the people in our lives, and we begin to realize that we had no idea what it felt like to feel seen and to feel valued. We didn't even realize that our narcissistic parents were hanging their validation and their love in front of us like a carrot, and that we, under the guise of codependency, below the veil of consciousness, as I like to say, because all men are asleep and unaware, they are unaware until they have that magical moment where they say, I can think about the way that I think. How am I being treated? Whoa, how do I feel about my narcissistic mom? Or how do I feel about what my mom just said? I remember the day that I said that to myself. I was 36 years old. My mom said something horrible to me on my birthday, and I just stopped for a moment. I put my head down, and I asked my heart, how do you feel? And I started to cry because I was acknowledging myself. And I was acknowledging this faulty, dysfunctional, narcissistic, codependent dynamic that I had lived with for my entire life. And so what happened, however, is as I began to confront my codependency, absolutely, Estelle, what began to happen was I started to experience panic, but in an odd way, like it would come out of nowhere. And I think this is what happens. I think that when we have distractions, these distractions are very beneficial, because when you have all this angst and anxiety that you're pushing down because you don't know how to process an emotion, right? I mean, if you've been raised by a narcissistic mother, you don't know how to process an emotion because you were never allowed to have an emotion. It was never your right to feel anything. You were programmed to worry about what she thought or what your narcissistic dad thought. You were irrelevant. Your experience was irrelevant. This is emotional abuse to the max. This is psychological abuse to the max. Being born and then being made to feel invisible, being treated with indifference, and then being taught that you exist to please other people. It's maddening. And when you go through a lifetime of feeling like you have to suppress and push and deny your feelings, what ends up happening is you have to develop enough distractions outside of you that are going to be able to help you hold down and suppress the anxiety inside of you. So I drew you a diagram. So, you know, I love my diagrams. So I just hope that you guys are able to see this. I'll try to make it so you can. So, oops, there go my glasses. So this represents, I used this diagram recently with a couple of clients, and they really, really responded to it well. So imagine that this is a hole in your backyard, okay? Just imagine. And imagine that you have, I know it sounds kind of gross, but imagine that you have 3 people in this hole. This hole represents your body's cells or your subconscious mind. And these people represent your anxiety that you're not letting out of bed, the anxiety that you're suppressing because you've been taught that your feelings don't matter. And so year after year after year after year, day after day, you're suppressing your emotions, right? So imagine that this hole in your backyard is just getting dumped and filled up with people. So for argument's sake, we're going to make it nice and easy. Let's say you have 3 people in that hole. If you wanted to keep people in that hole, right, and you didn't want them to get out, you would have to have 3 to 4 people of equal weight, of equal mass, and of equal strength, standing on some type of a board, okay, or a veil, standing on some type of a board outside of this hole in order to keep these emotions or these people in the hole or inside of you. So all of these people represent distractions, right? So they represent sometimes addiction. When we have a lot of pain inside of us, we can become addicted. We can become love addicts. We can become alcoholics. We can become pill poppers. We can become addicted to porn. We can become shopaholics, workaholics, sexaholics. So we can develop all these distractions, and these distractions cause enough anxiety in our lives that they equal the anxiety that we're trying to suppress, ignore, and we don't know how to deal with. Just hear me. Now, when you start to remove the veil, or in this case, let's say we have this big, thick piece of plywood that's keeping the people in this hole. So let's say one day, somebody gets sick and he jumps off the plywood. So now these people down here are able to push this plywood. So let's say another person gets sick, he gets knocked off, and he gets knocked off, and he gets knocked off. And let's say you are now ready, you have decided, I'm not dealing with all these distractions anymore. I don't want to be addicted anymore. I want to go into treatment. Or I don't want to live in a narcissistically abusive relationship anymore. I want a divorce. Or I don't want to deal with my narcissistic mother and father anymore. I'm not going there anymore. I'm going no contact. So when we eliminate all these distractions, guess what happens? The anxiety that has been within us for so long begins to rise and bubble to the surface. And now all of a sudden, this anxiety that we have been suppressing for our lives begins to surface. And we don't know what to do with this sometimes. And in the past, when we were dealing with other people's stuff, or having to walk around on eggshells because we were afraid to rock the boat, when that was going on, we were distracted from the anxiety on the inside. So what I'm trying to say, dear ones, is that when you start to deal with your stuff, when you decide to divorce a narcissist or leave a narcissist, when you decide to deal with your codependency head on, when you decide to confront an addiction, when you decide to tell your truth. Sometimes what happens is all this anxiety that you've been keeping and squelching inside of you begins to bubble and rise to the surface. Now, what we have to do, and this is what I teach people how to do in my programs and in private coaching online and in my books, all over the place, if you listen. What I'm trying to help people do is learn how to stay in their bodies while their conscious mind processes an emotion that their default settings of their brains ordinarily flag as pain and wish to avoid. If you can learn to sit in your body and observe these emotions, and remember, energy and emotions are one and the same. So emotions are energy that are supposed to stay in motion. Energy is not supposed to get stuck. And this is the thing, energy never gets stuck. There is always quantum activity at a subatomic level, which means there's always this inside of us. There's always this energy that's inside of us. It might be contained because we're suppressing it, but those of us who have never learned how to heal a feeling or feel a feeling and perceive a feeling in a proper way, we are running from our feelings. Well, we think we are. We're really not running from anything. Everything is inside of us. We have to learn to stay in our bodies, to sit with our discomfort for longer periods of time until we can emotionally and cognitively and consciously process emotions that have been stuck in our bodies for so long. So, dear Estelle, you are embarking on an amazing journey, and it's never too late. I also want to say that I'm getting goosebumps just talking about it. Don't be put off that you're 60, because, I always think about, and I share this often, one of the greatest motivating factors I have for doing what I do is the possibility that somebody out there won't die like my mom. My mom is in a wheelchair. She is suffering from dementia. She's lived with my narcissistic dad for 54 years.
She's been with him for 55 or 56 years. Like I said, dementia. And it's very sad to me to know that she never had a chance. She was raised by two alcoholic parents, never went into recovery, was a blind codependent her whole life. She became a complete people pleaser to my dad, and I believe that she lost her mind a long time ago and just handed it to him. Whatever he said, she was going along with. She feared him. She wanted to please him. That was her greatest desire in life, was to please this man and for him to need her. And so this idea that you're 60, it's okay, because you are going to, just embrace the rest of your life open-eyed and, in truth. And I think it's so much better for us to be in truth and to be afraid than to be in denial and in fear and not know what's wrong.
Hey, if you love this content, don't forget to check out the next video, and you can go to my website and take the codependency quiz.